What's up, everyone? This is Jay here from FantasyLabs, and I'm actually joined here, as you can see, or for you listeners, I'm joined here with a special guest, John, Nomad John, who took a backpack to Colorado the other day and just straight up and moved here out of the blue, completely random. So he's here, and we're doing a three-man pod actually with Justin, who's here as well. How's it going, man?
Pretty good. Glad to be joined by Jay and the Giant Peach over there. If you're watching the video,
I know.
I was hoping to start out zoomed in on Jay, like no buck, like how he announces it, hands out to Troy. But I am 3 times the size of Jay, so it's just not going to work out.
He's not.
It's not a camera trick. It's literally David Goliath over there. I feel scared for Jay that.
I'm scared. He's not sleeping here tonight.
We tried adjusting it before him, but we're just gonna have to go like this. This is fine.
All right, we'll roll with it.
Before we move, I do want to say we got a new sponsorship. We're at a new lab here finally. So Boban just wasn't getting it done. He wasn't paying well. He's not even playing. So we just had to cut ties, unfortunately. So start of a new era. And we got a 7-game slate for you guys, the Monday, February 29th. So a pretty good slate, kind of in tune with the last week and a half or whatever, where we've seen really good slate sizes. And more importantly, tonight's the Oscars, and we thought of a really, really quick DFS NBA Oscar awards. So we have some nominations. John, you want to get
Am I presenting first? Am I coming up to the table right now, to the podium?
Yeah, you can do the first one.
All right. We wrote these down, but we should go in backwards order, correct?
Yeah. We got to save the best one for last.
Well, in that case, I'm here to present Best Documentary. And so the nominees are, I wish we had videos behind us, but first of all, the Rockets on and off court conundrum, I guess we can call it, between players being traded and or reverse traded, Dwight firing his agent, Mikal being fired, James Harden apparently trying to get Dwight traded, all of that mess. David Blatt being fired, even though the Cavs were in first place, and Blake Griffin knocking his equipment manager out.
Yeah, and that was, I actually like that one as a sleeper. Blake just, because that came out of nowhere when it was like Blake Griffin broken hand. And everyone's like, what? How? Like, yeah, David Blatt getting fired. I mean, really, if you were in tune, you kind of knew that was coming one day. Blatt just wasn't a good fit for that team. So my nomination is Blake Griffin. What about you, Justin?
Yeah, I gotta go with Blake as well, and just couldn't sock him once. Had to follow him outside the restaurant and get him again. And I think like Blake's pretty much out for the season now. I think his status for the playoffs is in question now. This Clippers team is kind of at a crossroads where they're kind of figuring out, can they win?
They play better defense without him.
Yeah, I mean they've been playing well without him, but this team, it's like they just re-upped DeAndre, and they got him back in free agency, and the question looming about around this team is can this team take it to the next level and not be like a second round casualty? And I think Blake kind of put the cherry on top of their season, and
And they even got in trade discussions. So yeah, definitely our winner is Blake Griffin knocking his equipment manager out.
I don't even get to vote. It just wins. Like it was majority rules already.
You don't get to vote.
I was voting for the Rockets, by the way, but okay, that's fine.
Majority wins, John.
Okay.
All right, the next one we got is best costume design. We got nominees are Nuggets and their all white jerseys, the sleeves, which I generally don't like, but these ones were really sleek, looked really good. So that's a nominee. And then Justin couldn't let this go without the City Warriors jerseys, which are, been around for a while, really cool. And then the Kings throwback, the baby blue, especially when Boogie just dominates in the baby blue. So those are our 3. What do you got here, Justin?
You know what I got here. I got to rep the City jersey over here. I'm not a jersey guy myself, but it's the only one I own. I got a Chris Mullin City jersey, and I like the Kings. They're like a little sleeper here, but they just
Kings, yeah,
they just I can't. The stench of bad basketball. It's envelops the jersey whenever it's being worn.
Oh, that's 100% true, and that's a pretty big factor we have with our awards. John, where are you at?
Well, the snub is obviously the Hickory Pacers jerseys that I fought so hard for before the podcast, but no one wants to listen to me, despite the fact that I'm 6 times the size of Jay. But the Nuggets white sleeve jerseys are the only vote, in my opinion. That's the way to go with this one.
That's what I
don't even like sleeve jerseys, but
no, I don't either.
The white sleeves are good.
They pulled off a really good look, and that's mine as well. So majority wins, but the Hickory that movie sucks. It's stupid. I won't even name it.
It doesn't have to be a good movie. That's the thing, though. The jerseys are still pretty kick-ass. Plus, like, Ollie is a reference to all your small white friends who are somehow good at basketball. Like, everyone just calls him Ollie.
Jay being the smallest white friend of all.
See,
Nuggets white sleeve takes.
You did make some shots last night when we got home in, like, the complete dark. You did airball one, of course, as well, but that's fine.
After the buzzer. All right. Justin, what's the next category?
All right, this will be a fun. Best actress in a supporting role. We got Warriors well represented here. Riley Curry, the first one. Second one being Mary Babbers Green, Draymond Green's mom. She's a social media star. She gets it done on Twitter. She where Draymond gets his smack talk from. She's the OG. And then we got to throw in Gloria Govan here, the third actor, the third character in the drama, the triangle between Derek Fisher and Matt Barnes. So who are we going here?
Yeah, I mean the only triangle that worked in NBA this season really was that one, and I think it's a huge sleeper, and it has my vote. Gloria has my vote. I mean Derek Fisher's career is over. I don't think he's going to coach for a while. It's a pretty big deal. I think Riley's time in the spotlight. I'm sick of it. I really am. I don't get it.
Oversaturated
for sure. Mary is a dark horse. She's legitimately psychotic most times. But I'm going with Gloria Govan here.
I guess I'm going with Gloria Govan. And if no one knows what's going on in this category, it's just fine because I had to Google everything before the podcast. So you're not alone. Don't worry.
So we really are like the Oscars.
I had to look up everything beforehand.
All right. Justin, what do you got? Not that it matters.
Yeah, I'll go Govan too for a clean sweep. I think Ryan Curry is coming for Riley's spot. Steph just had a new baby girl, so it's her time to shine. Oscars 2019, 19.
Definitely be nominated.
She'll show me the next.
Okay, well, all right. Our next one we got to cruise through these. Actually, now I'm thinking about it. Best actor in a supporting role. Nominees are Draymond Green. The Warriors are just really. They're the Mad Max of NBA this year. We got Russell Westbrook and then Kyrie Irving. My vote's for Russell Westbrook.
Russell Westbrook isn't going to show up to accept his award, but we're going to give it to him anyways. It doesn't matter.
If he finds out about this, it's over for FantasyLabs.
If he's listening to this podcast, please accept our award.
We got to go Russ for the clean sweep. And, I think he's going to grab the FantasyLabs Oscar and just slam it and throw it on the ground.
Absolutely. I wouldn't expect anything less. All right, John, what's our next one?
Best actor in a leading role. We all know where this is going, but it's just fine. Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and Kawhi Leonard, the underdog, I think.
I really want to cast a vote for Kawhi here pretty badly, but I think you got to go Curry, especially after that game winner against the Thunder.
Yeah, I mean, who pulls up from 34 feet by choice with, 3, 4, 5 seconds left on the clock and just casually nails a game winner? And, he's the GOAT right now. And, I mean,
he completely wins this category, yeah.
All right, I think we can safely move on here.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead and bring us our next one. Who's up?
You go, Justin? Would you like to
Yeah, we'll go Best Director. Greg Popovich, Brad Stevens, or the duo of Steve Kerr and Luke Walton. Where are we going here?
Jay is going to argue for some reason, but
you're really going to vote for the two-headed dragon?
It's obviously Kerr and Walton. Obviously. There's no other choice.
Strongly disagree. We just mentioned that they have the best leading actor.
Why can't you be?
And they had the best supporting actor as a nomination.
Why can't you be best director and best actor?
No, I'm saying the acting in his movie is incredible. He has a leading actor.
You have to have someone direct it, and they just happen to have two great directors.
Overrated. I'm going with if this were next year, I'd go Brad Stevens, and I think he's very strong. But I'm still going to go with Greg Popovich.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Greg Popovich as well, and
Nice.
this is coming from a Warriors fan. I don't know. This team is just so good on in terms of talent, and not saying the Spurs lack on talent either, but we kind of can compare the two rosters together, and there's a little bit of talent disparity, and Greg Popovich is the best. You can't argue that a couple of years of Steve Kerr can suddenly surpass what Pop is able to do. He's just I'm with Jay though. I really want to vote for Brad Stevens because
Stevens.
We talk about talent on the roster, and that's even
he kind of got snubbed. You could argue.
Yeah.
Jay also mentioned Terry Stotts beforehand, but no,
I did.
I knocked that out of the park.
There's
swatted.
There's no proof of that.
None of that.
Let's go on to our final nomination before we actually talk about what you guys are listening for. Best Picture. So nominees are obviously the Warriors, the Spurs, and the Cavs. And I think we all agree that it's the Warriors. The way they're playing this year, they just came off, 5 road games in 6 nights. They've had a brutal schedule stretch here. Some players visibly kind of wearing down, but they keep winning. They're 9-1 in their last 10, best record overall, chasing the Bulls record. So I think it's pretty easy here to go Warriors.
I think it's pretty obviously Warriors. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a debate to be had whether they're the better team than the Spurs. But when we're talking best pictures to this point, and they're 53-5, on pace to smash the Bulls' regular season record of 72-10, the 96 Bulls, and clean sweep.
Clean sweep. Warriors were the Mad Max, and they cleaned up in our DFS NBA Oscars. Now let's get to the real stuff. John, kick us off with the first game.
We're starting with Pacers at the Cavs. The Cavs are favored by 8. The total 207.5.
All right, and injuries on the Pacers side. We got CJ Miles with a strained left calf, who's unlikely to play again. And then on the Cavs side, we got Mo Williams with a sore left knee, was ruled out for the road trip. I probably wouldn't expect him to play in this one, though. And LeBron, who sat out last game for rest, we're fully expecting back in this one. So both teams are on a back-to-back. 2 good defenses. It's a pretty sneaky high total, 207.5, but I don't really want a piece of this game in cash.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I think you can maybe sneak LeBron in the cash mix, but he's, given the other option on the slate, he's probably not the, one of the elite options. I obviously don't think there's anybody on the Pacers that I'm looking to cash. Paul George coming off that big dud against the Minu on Sunday. We had him on our rosters too. So on the Pacer side, you can maybe look at Miles Turner potentially, but there's so much value at power forward usually that you're never really forced to go him in cash. I think he's a decent tournament option. And on the Cavs side, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, both tournament options for me. I think you can maybe look at Kyrie more on DK, where he's always kind of priced pretty softly, but that's about it for me.
Yeah, tournament plays only really for me all around. It's tough kind of going Pacers. The Cavs do a really good job limiting people having huge games, and they played a really slow pace here. So I think it's just maybe, some Miles Turner, maybe Paul George in a bounce back spot, hopefully some pretty low ownership for recency bias. And then, on the Cavs side, you got Kyrie and Love for tournaments.
Yeah, it's just so hard with Paul George. Like, even in a bounce back spot for tournaments, now he's opposing LeBron. Like, He definitely is going to have low ownership tomorrow, but it's just so hard to roster him in that spot.
Yeah, because you have to wonder what his actual ceiling is in that spot, whether, realistically, can he hit 50, 60 DK points in that spot? And I think the answer is probably not. So it's a tough conundrum for sure.
We can move on to the Sixers at the Wizards. Both teams on a back-to-back as well. Wizards are favored by 11.5. Total 214.
Nice juicy total here. 2 bad defenses. Injuries for the Sixers side, we got Hollis Thompson, who missed Sunday with illness. We can consider questionable. On the Wizards side, we got Gary Neal, sore right leg. We can consider questionable as well. So pretty minor here. But with the Hollis Thompson news, we definitely liked Robert Covington on FanDuel specifically. He's still really cheap here. He's 5K now, so he was 4,700, but even at 5K, I don't mind. He kind of bounced back late in this game Sunday where he was a huge dud, but I'm kind of fine with him in cash. I like the price point he's at, and especially if Hollis Thompson misses this one. And
yeah, I agree. This is a good spot for him, obviously against Washington, and early foul trouble kind of ruined his first half. He picked up, didn't see quite as many minutes, and especially if Hollis Thompson's out, it's basically him, Cannon, and Stauskas on the wing for Philly. So I'm off. I don't want really any tournament exposure to this team, even with its bad defense, because you just don't know how the minutes distribution is going to be like. And 11.5 point spread on a back-to-back, even if Ja comes in and scores at a prolific rate, I don't think he's a guarantee to even sniff 30 minutes. Nerlens kind of the same thing, and it's just too up and down for me to really love him in this spot. So I'm kind of off Philly, as a whole. I think, Covington's the only guy you can look at. And on the Wizards side, two guys have really stood out, pretty much all season, being John Wall and Marcin Gortat. Really, really juicy spot for them. And Wall almost triple-doubled when they played recently. So, this is as good a spot as it gets. You kind of only worry about blow-up potential really being the only thing that makes Wall not a slam dunk cash play. But he's obviously an elite play.
Yeah, when they played last game, it was actually stayed in contention the entire time, which is why Wall had that crazy line of 23, 8, and 11. Gortat in that game, 26 minutes, 12 points, 11 rebounds. But Gortat, even though he's a great cash play, he's actually good in tournaments as well because he is always under-owned. Like, there is never anything above 10% ownership for Gortat, and it's a tremendous spot. My curiosity peaks, however, with Markieff because he keeps starting second halves. And so, when will he eventually start a game? And will his minutes continue to increase? I don't know.
Yeah, I think Markieff makes for a great tournament play here, definitely. If he can get extended minutes here on this offense and against the Sixers, I think he has some pretty decent upside, and he'll definitely have a low ownership here. Gortat's 6,900 on both sites, so I definitely think that's a great tournament price too to kind of beef up the rest of your lineup there at that price. So definitely upside here, and I think Wall is a very solid, strong cash play on both sides.
With that, we can move on. Jazz at the Celtics. Both teams playing an island game, so we don't have back-to-backs here. Celtics are favored by 5.5 points and a slightly lower total, 202.5.
Yeah, Jazz obviously good defense, especially lately, really picking it up with Gobert back there. The only notable injury is Avery Bradley with a twisted left ankle is probable, so we can expect him to play in this one. Kind of tough all around to go cash plays. We see it a lot with Boston, even in kind of good matchups. It's hard to play, but especially against the Jazz at Utah, I think you can kind of safely write off everyone here in cash.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the tournament plays are, Jay Crowder and Jared Sullinger for Boston. I think, those two have seen, increased minutes in the front court with Olynyk being out. Tyler Zeller's not seen a lot of minutes. He's seen about, 13.5 recently. And I think you can kind of look at those guys. I'm not really loving Isaiah Thomas too much. He's usually kind of in cash game consideration on DK. I don't think he has this tremendous upside in this spot where it's going to be a slower game. I'm not really looking to, have a lot of shares of him. And on Utah's side, Derek Favors, Gordon Hayward, where are we at with those guys, Jay Sean?
I think they're strong tournament plays. I think they'll be overlooked a lot, and I think they have plenty of upside. The Celtics play fast pace. This is a really, really fast paced upgrade for the Jazz, how they usually play. So, I kind of like picking these spots. I like Gobert's upside a lot. Rodney Hood has upside. I don't know if it's a great tournament play. He's usually more of kind of a cash play, but not really in this one against Avery Bradley, assuming he plays. I think Hayward has decent upside here, but a difficult matchup. So probably the front court is who I would want to target the most in tournaments with Favors and Gobert.
Yeah, Solinger, 1.29 DraftKings points in his last 9 games. Dude on a per-minute rate is just killing it. But this is just such a tough game. And he remains hobbled in that group of power forwards at FanDuel that they're basically all the same price. So it's just a matter of picking the matchup that evening. And outside of tournaments, like if you're going in cash, I don't think this is the one for Solinger.
Well, this might be a good tournament spot because I've seen it before where power forwards face Derek Favors and they can see really reduced ownership as a result. So I don't think Sully will be highly owned at all, even though he's been at like 33.8 DK points for the last week. So I think this is a decent spot to kind of buy low, even though I don't love the spot. What do you think about Shelvin Mack? We dipped in the well a couple times. I just don't think he's very good. I watched games and he's just kind of parked in that left corner like a lot on possessions and being so like uninvolved all the time. And he hit a couple floaters to get a couple points the other day, but his game is just rough. And
I really liked him. I truly did.
We played him in cash against Brooklyn.
Boy, did we.
Yeah, and I'd run it back, but that was kind of like okay, Shelvin, like you're up, this is it kind of chance. Like if you don't do anything this game, there's no reason to think you're going to do anything any other game. And for cash, you just can't go a guy like that when he has a matchup like that presented at a dirt cheap price and he's still bust. It's just very difficult to trust in cash. And kind of until we see him not stand in the corner, he's got to be more of a facilitator and actually do more on the court to really consider in cash.
I looked at it in the preview that evening, and I even ended up writing. I was like, Mac, like I know the price, like $3,700 at FanDuel that night, but turn him into play. Don't even worry about him in cash. And of course, I ended up sweating him in cash, which was disastrous. And I mean, his price has actually decreased. Like he's the absolute minimum at FanDuel, so you're basically paying nothing for him. But even so, in this matchup, man, I don't know if I'd run it back. I don't think I like him.
Yeah, I don't like him either. All right, I think
what about Boston? Isaiah, maybe some Isaiah exposure. What about Jay Crowder? He's been playing really well lately.
Yeah, I mentioned him with Sully at the top. The two guys I'm interested in. Two guys kind of benefiting from the depth issues in that front court with Olynyk on. So I like Crowder quite a bit.
It's also an absolute leap of faith. But if Amir Johnson sees 25 minutes, just give me 25 minutes, all I want. Like he's going to go off. You can't use him in cash because he's always in the weird rotation, either with or behind Jerebko and Zeller. They got a lot of things going on in their front court. But I do like Amir Johnson tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind a little exposure. This shapes up to be more of an Amir Johnson matchup than Jerebko because they need kind of a more traditional big to match up against Derek Favors. So he's fine. Yeah, we see all the time. I would check box scores with Boss and Amir like finishes the first quarter of like 12-5 or something. So I don't mind it at all. But just more of a dart throw, kind of a thinner GPP play, not as strong as kind of the other guys like Jay Crowder on this team. All right.
Another high total here as we move along. Rockets at the Bucks. The Rockets are road favorites, 1.5, and the total is 212.5.
Yeah, so definitely probably the best game on the slate. Well, one of the best, yeah, but my personal favorite. I kind of want to load up on this one. Injuries on the Rockets side, we got Clint Capela with a sprained right ankle, is questionable. On the Milwaukee side, we got Jared Bayless and John Henson who are continuing to miss games. Sprained right knee and sore lower back. I suspect that they will not suit up for this one as well. And then Steve Novak, great, huge pickup there. Sprained MCL, ruled out for the season. Yeah,
so I agree with Jay Sean that this is my favorite game in the slate. Obviously, the Wizards game, Sixers game has a higher total, but the spread's 11.5. This is 1.5, so we can actually expect the starters to kind of play full minutes in this one and get the benefit of a high total and kind of go up tempo a little bit. And on Houston's side, I think there's two clear cash game plays. James Harden and Dwight Howard. I don't think I really need to say too much about either guy, and they'll kind of both feast in the spot. Bucks front court has been one to really pick on, especially at center. So I think Dwight's going to be in for a massive game in this one. I really like him as kind of one of the top cash game plays of the slate. I think he usually gets a little slept on, actually, generally. I think people will be Oliver Harden, but I kind of like Dwight a lot in this spot. And Beverly, always, conservatively priced. I think on DK, where he's a lot more, appealing on a points per dollar basis. So I don't mind a little bit of him. I think you're going to see about 29, 30 minutes in this one. And, in this kind of up-tempo environment setup, it's really hard for him not to rack up some stats as a whole. And Milwaukee's kind of careless with the basketball. I can see him coming up with a couple steals as well. So I don't mind him for a little salary cap relief. And then we've talked about this in the past, where these kind of up-tempo games, kind of sloppy games, kind of shape up well for a guy like Trevor Ariza. And I like him, in tournaments a lot. I think he's been seeing, I think 40 minutes over the last couple of games. He's been seeing big minutes. So I don't mind, heavy exposure to him in tournaments.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you said. And Dwight, yeah, he is always kind of overlooked, especially on DraftKings. He's 7,300, but you can't forget the double-double bonus. But at that price, I think it's a no-brainer. I think it's a really easy play to make. FanDuel's $8K. I still love the spot for him, so I think he's a top my cash game list at center on both sites, but especially on DraftKings. And then, yeah, we've talked about Ariza and transition scoring and offense there is strong. Obviously, Harden is a strong cash play, especially on the slate.
For the Bucks, if we can go the opposite way now, I don't think it's certainly not cash, but the Rockets and Dwight Howard are actually really bad at defending centers, really bad. Greg Monroe's production might be a roller coaster at the moment, but it doesn't matter because it's such a great spot for him in tournaments. I love Greg Monroe tomorrow. And for cash, it's just more of the obvious culprits for Milwaukee. Parker, don't worry about the last game. Just rewind him as quickly as you can. He's just fine. Mm-hmm. Middleton is almost boring. He's so consistent. He's just been going off every single game. And, of course, Giannis the past few games, who has just been unstoppable.
Giannis has been a absolute beast.
Unbelievable.
I actually, go through my games now when the Bucks play, and I fade Giannis to see who played him, and then I sweat that matchup because it's so scary. He can rack up so many points so fast. He's doing everything on the court. Really blossoming. And those three middle guys, 2 through 4, Middleton, Giannis, and Jabari are just playing such big, stable minutes. They have really high scores. They're still underpriced. Jabari's still only 5,600 on FanDuel in a great matchup. So I like shares of all three in cash spread apart.
Yeah, I think Giannis is my favorite play, averaging 16, 10, and 8, almost a triple-double over his last 3 games, and 2 blocks and a steal as well. So I think he can easily go for 50-plus on DK in this one. Yeah, I really like that floor. I think Jared Bayless is probably closer to doubtful in this one. They said, hopefully he'll play Monday, but, I think if he plays, he'll kind of just be a fringe rotation player and just maybe take Rashad Vaughn's minutes or something, and Giannis's minutes will be safe. So I really like Giannis in this spot especially.
Definitely a strong game to target overall in cash.
Probably another strong game, but the rotations are definitely going to make my head explode, is the Grizzlies at the Nuggets. Grizzlies are favored by 2.5 points, a total of 207.
Yeah, so injuries, we got me and Justin have talked about this with the Grizzlies beat writers and how they just probably the worst in the league with injuries. And Tony Allen with his sore left knee is apparently active, but we don't ever know if he's playing. Nobody knows. And it kind of is a big deal because we have guys like, Lance Stevenson and PJ Hairston, who are options, especially kind of on these smaller slates. So as of now, Tony Allen, we can consider questionable that sore left knee. And then another injury is Brandon Wright had a knee injury.
Yeah, I think Brandon Wright will be out for a period of time. We haven't got an update on him, but he was carried to the locker room and it looked bad. So I would be surprised if he played on Monday.
Yeah, I'll get through the Nuggets real quick, and then let's go to that Brandon Wright injury because it brings up a lot of things. On On the Nuggets side, we got Moutier, left calf tightness is probable, so we can expect him to play. Jameer Nelson with the sprained left wrist is doubtful. And then big news for the Nuggets and DFS especially for the next little bit is Danilo Gallinari is out 3 to 4 weeks with a right ankle injury.
Yeah, so this is really interesting spot. I think let's go to Denver first. And with Gallinari out, that obviously opens up a lot of minutes and usage at the forward spots. And I think the guy you're looking at to kind of soak a lot of that up is Will Barton. I think he's solidly on cash radars, cash consideration, strong cash play, whatever way you want to phrase it. You really want to kind of force him into your lineups on Monday. And we've kind of seen his big potential when he does see, close to 30 minutes. And I think he should absolutely see 30 plus in this one, because they're a little, thinner at the forward spots now. They'll need him to play bigger minutes. So Barton is solid, in cash game play. You can look at Gary Harris as well. I like him a little bit less if Tony Allen does play, but given the expected usage rump, I think he definitely should be considered regardless. And yeah, let's go to some GPP tournament plays. And my favorite one from this team is always Jokic. He's kind of been up and down with the minutes, and but that's why he's a GPP play. You kind of gamble with the ceiling. We know what he can do when he sees 24 to 26 minutes, which is all we really need, all we really want from him. And my second favorite play is Kenneth Faried. I think he always kind of gets slept on consistently just because the minutes aren't quite there. He doesn't really see 30 minutes anymore, but we know that even in limited minutes, he's kind of got like a guy like Jokic who can really fill it up and put up some big lines. So who else do you like from this team, Jay Sean?
You go ahead, John.
What goes hand in hand with Jokic is really Darrell Arthur, who lost in all the love for Will Barton last game, played 22 second-half minutes once Gallinari went down as they rotated Faried to center. So, if they're going to do that again, Arthur's going to get the minutes at power forward. So it's just a matter of, which one are we choosing here? What do we think they'll do? And with Memphis now featuring a lot more smaller lineups, Chris Anderson played 20 minutes in their last game, but it was so misconstrued. Yeah, it was so misconstrued because it was a blowout as well. So it was all over the place. But I think smaller lineups will actually be used more. Of course, Jokic and Darrell Arthur still, though, tournament plays because you don't know, as shown by 11 minutes in his last game.
Yeah, Faried, he always gets off to really hot starts, but Malone kind of pulls him late in games. We've seen it quite often. We've actually seen it a lot in his career a lot. So it's always limits his upside, unfortunately, when he has 30 at half and can't really get up to the really, really, really high numbers because he doesn't play a lot of the fourth quarter. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Barton and especially Gary Harris has cheap price. I like their usage bumps. Barton, I think the bigger, even more so than his usage bump, is his minutes, which we really care about here. So with Gallo out, I think they're strong cash plays. And yeah, I think it's really tough to gauge on kind of how this game will go in terms of small ball here. I think Brandon Wright definitely plays a role in that. We're expecting him to miss time. So Jokic makes for a prime tourney play in the fact that, if he does see big minutes, he can really go off. But at the same time, they can go Darrell Arthur and Faried at the 5 quite often. So.
And I'll be the one to say it, since I'm the one who wrote it down into our notes prior to the podcast. No one else wants to take the blame on this. But DJ Augustine in tournaments, not just 36 minutes in his last game, but 25 minutes since he's joined the Nuggets. I think he's fine in tournaments. I really do think Mike Malone enjoys playing him, as shown by Jameer Nelson, healthy scratches basically. Even though he's active, he's not playing. I think Augustine continues to run 25-plus minutes at the point. I think he's a great tournament play. Just tweet at who gives a shit whenever he's not a good tournament play. But I do think he's a good tournament play.
Yeah,
all right.
Fine, man.
Yeah, he's okay. We'll leave John.
Look down on me.
We'll
with DJ Augustine.
I look up at you from this.
Very true.
So I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I think this is just a very interesting game overall on this Nuggets side. There are a lot of things at play here, but definitely want exposure. And we didn't even really bring up that Memphis' defense has been spectacular lately. It's been really solid all around. It was horrible at the beginning of the season, and it's gotten a lot better. So these aren't like, stone cold locks to kind of get a ton of exposure to. But I definitely think Barton as price and increased minutes is the strongest, my favorite cash play.
Yeah, I wouldn't go too crazy here, just with the reasons Jay mentioned. This is a tough matchup, as you said, and yeah, even with Marcus Sol, it's not like it's not like they're slipping into the bottom half of the league in defensive efficiency. I do think their recent defensive efficiency rank has been a little, buoyed by the fact that they played the Lakers twice, like lately, but.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Will Barton and Gary Harris are your guys, and you kind of gamble on the others with in tournaments. So let's move on to the Memphis side here. So let's assume that Brandon Wright is out of this one. I'd say he's doubtful for now, and JaMychal Green probably will get the start again at center. I think he's a really good punt play option. Assuming that Wright's out, because they're basically kind of down to JaMychal and Birdman at center, with sliding Zach Randolph over there as well. So I think he definitely warrants a look. And yeah, going back to the duo that we always look at is Mike Conley and Zach Randolph. I think there's less of a concern for blowout potential with this matchup at Denver than there was with the previous two against the Lakers. So I like those two a little bit more than usual. I love both of them in both those matchups, but you kind of, decrease the blowout potential a little bit in this spot, and I like them even more.
Yeah, Zebo 6,500 on FanDuel, I still definitely like, and I definitely like Conley in the spot going against the Nuggets backcourt here. I think is a very strong cash play. It's been very solid and consistent since Gasol's been down.
I think Conley's fine in tournaments too, because it's the least sexiest play, but he's almost guaranteed production, especially in a game this close. He should stay in for quite a bit, and he's going to be less owned in tournaments. Not many people are going to have exposure towards him.
Yeah, and then I definitely agree with JaMychal Green. I think it's a very interesting play, and if you're in need of salary cap relief, he's 4K on FanDuel, and yeah, they're very thin in the front court, assuming Brandon Wright misses this one. And kind of going against the Nuggets, he is a good fit. I don't think Birdman will really play a lot, especially if Jokic isn't out there a lot. So could definitely see JaMychal Green paying off his price here.
And if Tony Allen is out, I would almost say even if Brandon Wright was out, what do we think about Lance Stevenson? Get me excited about dumpster diving for Lance Stevenson.
It's a true dumpster dive. I don't have a problem with it, actually. I think it's a fine tournament play. He definitely allows you to stack up a lot of positions. He's very, very cheap. So I'm fine with it if Tony Allen's out and assuming Brandon Wright's out.
Because if Brandon Wright's out, yeah, I'm also assuming they go small as well. And Lance Stevenson, 3,800 at FanDuel, you're basically punting the shooting guard position at a lower price. So I don't mind it, but it would obviously take some players being out to have exposure towards him.
Yeah, I'd agree. If we're looking at those two options, Stevenson and Harrison, I'd rather gamble on Born Ready to come through, because I just think he has a higher upside in general than Harrison. I think Harrison's, he'll kind of give you what he'll give you, which is kind of like 22 DK points or something. But I can see Lance maybe having a game in this kind of up tempo spot a little bit and going a little crazy. So as Lance does.
Yeah,
so.
You make him dance.
Exactly. All right, so I think that wraps it up for this game.
Well, then let's get on to the big one. We have no line because we're still awaiting news, but the Thunder at the Kings.
Yeah, and the reason we have no over total or spread is because Rajon Rondo, who's questionable with right thumb tendonitis, and last game he was ruled out, and we saw Darren Collison be a strong cash play, as he usually is at his price if Rondo misses. So definitely an interesting game here. If we get news on Rondo, hopefully before lineups lock, would be really, really nice. But either way, let's look at this Thunder team, and pretty comfortable going at least one of KD and Westbrook here.
Yeah, of course. And the only thing you're kind of worried about with this spot is blow up potential, but you kind of look at the other spots with Washington and Philly and with John Wall, and you kind of get the similar kind of concerns there. So I'm fine with KD and Russ. And in this spot, which one are you going, if you had to pick between the two? I mean, KD's been, the more productive player as of late, and he's kind of always been the one I prefer in general. I know we differ on that, Jay Sean, but, I'll toss it to both you and John, KD or Russ.
Yeah, I usually go with Russ if I'm going to pick, but it depends on the depth of small forward for me. A lot of times if I do want to save, a lot of people we've seen lately save at small forward and go two of these 5K to 6K guys. We've had Matt Barnes match up against the Lakers. We've had, Covington was 4,700. He's 5K now. So you kind of have options where you don't necessarily need to go Durant. Now we have Giannis, who's a strong cash play at small forward. So it makes it a little bit tougher to pay up for Durant if it costs you Westbrook. But I think you definitely have to look at overall the position depth of point guard and small forward and kind of choose that way, because they both obviously have very, very high floors and are both strong cash plays most any night. And obviously the matchup for both of them in this one is, really good. So on this slate, as of now, I think I'm leaning Russ. Just because I kind of like some of the small forwards on this slate to go that are a bit cheaper here.
Same for me. Recently, I've been dipping down from Durant, going Giannis in a few situations, just like he said, just because of his production recently. And I also like to target Sacramento's backcourt usually. But tomorrow is going to be a big decision at point guard between the top three highest priced ones. And though the others are in great situations as well, I really like Russ in this spot tomorrow. I'm pretty sure that's where I'm leaning as of this moment.
Yeah, I can see it. I think the Sacramento is obviously, 28, 29th in defensive efficiency. So obviously always a defense to target. And yeah, let's look at the rest of this team. Serge had a big game against the Warriors, but a lot of that came in overtime when Durant was fouled out. I think he had like 6 and 5 in overtime alone, which made his kind of line look a little bit more padded than it would have otherwise. I think he's okay in tournaments. He's never a player I would really roll out in cash, even in a juicy spot like this against Sacramento. I think you can kind of look at Enes Kanter as well, because my big thing with any team kind of facing Sacramento is foul trouble for the opposing centers. And even though Steven Adams traditionally, you kind of look at this matchup, you'll think that they need him more than usual against Boogie. I'm just worried that Adams picks up quick 2 and doesn't see 25 plus in this one. So I think Kanter will kind of be needed to play a little bit more. I don't see them really going to Collison at center. So Kanter in the spot with blowout potential plus potential for more minutes with Adams possibly getting foul trouble makes him a tournament play for me as well.
The only thing is I just wouldn't chase Ibaka's points from his last game. He's clearly
not in cash, but I think it shows upside. He always has upside, and the Kings get their shots blocked a lot. So I definitely like the spot here for him, of course. It's going to be a fast-paced game, lots of shots, lots of rebounds, block opportunities. So definitely a tournament play, and along with the other guys you said. And one thing on this slate, while we get into the Kings here with kind of Boogie as a fringe cash play here, is that we have some heavyweights. We have some studs on this slate, like 6 guys, around 10K or more. Where do you have – so, this is definitely going to be a very high total when it comes out. Is Boogie a strong cash play?
Yeah, I would put him right up there. But there are so many plays, like you said, and we talked about James Harden. I think I might go Dwight over Boogie. That's where I'll go to kind of save at that position.
Even Gortat or Dwight, I think you look at them pretty hard, and that can kind of hopefully get you Harden and one of Russ or KD, depending on the positional depth there. But I think it costs a lot to go Boogie when you have Dwight, 2,900 cheaper on FanDuel and even more on DK. So and
even if you want a piece of like John Wall on DK, where he's always conservatively priced, you have to spend up a little bit. So I think this is a spot where you can kind of look at Boogie only in tournaments just because of the texture and the composition of the slate and the other options available. I think when you're putting rosters together, I just don't see myself going Boogie very often in many iterations. So Not saying that I don't like Boogie, but I'm just saying that he's expensive, and there are other places where I'd like to spend otherwise. And I think the big injury news with Sacramento, which kind of shaped who we like, is with Rajon Rondo, and he was seen practicing on Sunday, so I'd say he's probably closer to probable heading into Monday. We should get an injury report from the Kings. Maybe it's up right now while we're recording this podcast, because I usually release it the night before. So we should have an idea on Rondo either way. And if Rondo does happen to miss, which I don't think he will, then obviously you like Darren Collison again. He got the start last game in this spot. He should easily see 34, 35 plus minutes with Seth Curry really being the only guy behind him.
Yeah, exactly. Seth making some Steph shots last game. But, yeah, I think Collison's a pretty strong cash play if we get word that Rondo's out. But I'm with you. I think Rondo will suit up for this one.
Yeah, no team in this slate has allowed more DK points to point guards in the last 10 games than Oklahoma City. We throw out a lot about Russ shutting down opposing point guards. But the fact is, even though that is the case sometimes, sure, but Oklahoma City is top 3 rate allowed to point guards on the season, according to DK points. So it's not really a matchup, I fear, and especially at Collison's price. If Rondo is out, like cash all the way. If Rondo plays, I'm fine with Rondo in tournaments, actually, because he's going to be very, very low owned. Very.
Exactly. I totally agree with the other point guard options. I think another guy you want to look at is going back to John's point real quick. I think it's less of an indictment on Westbrook than it is on the Thunder's defense as a whole, especially on the interior with Cantor seeing some minutes, and their team defense is just leaky all over the place. I think they still think they're top 10 on the season, but they have their moments where they can just give up points in bunches. So I'm all about Collison, and then if Rondo's out, then I like Rondo as well in tournaments. So Rudy Gay, I think, is a good tournament option if you want kind of kind of under the radar type way to get exposure to this high scoring game. I don't trust him in cash, but yeah, I'm good with some Rudy Gay shares here as well.
Absolutely. He's my boy. He's been my boy most of the season in tournaments. So yeah, definitely run it back with him in this game at under, less of an ownership than the other guys in this game pieces of. So definitely a good game to target in both formats though.
And finally, another good one to cap the night off. Nets at Clippers. Clippers, 13-point favorites, total of 208.5.
Yeah, and the only injury really is just Paul Pierce, who was out last game due to personal reason. Expected to play in this one, so we can consider him in, and no more, unfortunately, Jeff Green starting here.
Let me roll this back real quick. The Kings did just release an injury report. I just checked Twitter. Rudy Gay and Rondo are both listed as questionable officially, so we'll have to keep an eye on Rudy Gay as well. All right, so let's go back to this Nets Clippers game.
So hold on. Do you want to quickly, what happens if Gay is out? Do we just assume Caspi, or what about Bellinelli?
No, I'm not on Bellinelli. I would look at Caspi. I think Bellinelli is he's so score independent that I just question his upside really. I've seen Caspi have big games with Rudy out, so I'd lean him more so than Bellinelli if Rudy has to miss.
And that would just be one more kind of cheap small forward there, which strength the kind of Russ over KD possibility if you have a bevy of cheap options at small forward.
Okay, now back to the Clippers.
Yeah, so this game with the 13-point spread, I think on the net side, the Clippers have actually been playing some decent defense. We touched up on in our awards with how they've been playing good defense without Blake Griffin. Is there anyone on the Nets really? I mean, we've seen Thad, play really well with Joe Johnson gone and everything. Is he still a cash game option?
No, I'm not touching anybody from Brooklyn and cash. My biggest issues all season with Brook and Thad have been minutes, because I see their minutes downside all the time. They go up and down. They can play up to 37. They can play as few as 28, depending on the game flow. With 13-point spread, they actually have some bodies in this Brooklyn front court. They're not good, but they have options at least, and they can go to Willie Reed, Chris McCullough, Thomas Robinson. So I'm not touching Brooklyn at all in cash. I think it's fine to have some exposure to Dad and Brook Lopez in tournaments, but I'm not touching Donald Sloan, not touching Wayne Ellington, Bogdan. I don't want any other piece of this team.
Yeah, I think it's more of an indictment against Bogdan, actually. But even in his last 2 games without Joe Johnson, 30.7 minutes over that time, still only averaging 0.61 DK points per minute. Like, just on a per-rate basis, like, the guy doesn't produce much. He is low priced, so if you're punting, that is probably the way to go. But just don't be enticed by his price in cash. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, I think I went him the first night when he started, but that was more speaking of just how bad the slate was and how bad small forward was. But I think
he also played the Suns that game, which was juicy.
Yeah,
and
it was
itself. But yeah, I can see this game where getting out of hand, and then guys like Willie Reed, McCullough, Thomas Robinson, Markel Brown, Sergei Karasev, they all get their minutes. Shane Larkin cutting in, maybe evenly split with Donald Sloan. So yeah, I'm off this team.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only exposure I want is maybe a little bit of Brook Lopez and I think some Thad in tournament. Yeah. Let's get to the Clippers side. So obviously we've seen, especially last game with Chris Paul, just been an absolute monster. Obviously this is a fantastic matchup, but the real concern here is minutes. And I think we've gone over this a few times where the Clippers have been big favorites a lot lately, really. And Chris Paul still kind of always gets his. He's the main reason they get up to these blowouts. So I'm still fine with him in cash, but we kind of just went over a lot of other tight, close games with high-priced guys where Chris Paul kind of unfortunately takes a back seat to those guys. I do think he's a great tournament play because I do think he'll be kind of under-owned. I think people will be worried about the spread here. But if those other point guards don't have great games, I think Chris Paul just showed his upside last game, and I think it offers pretty great value here.
We're going Chris Paul over John Wall, right? Given the blowout concerns with each.
Yeah, I think I like Chris Paul more than Wall, and Wall on a back-to-back as well.
Yeah,
but definitely I'd rather spend up for Russ than
right. Or Harden.
I definitely like Paul in tournaments as well. I think a lot of people would rather try to get to Russ or think about Paul and Wall and just say, oh, Wall's playing the Sixers. Like, that's the way to go. I think Paul is in that middling price where not too many people will own him, as opposed to Westbrook.
Yeah, and kind of looking at the rest of his team, they're all tournament plays for me. I'm not cashing DeAndre. I think he's a tournament player exclusively. I think you can kind of look at Redick potentially on FanDuel as a cash game option, but I think that's a little thin because he has minutes downside for sure. I think I can definitely see him only playing like 27 minutes in this one. And seeing guys like Jamal Crawford and even like CJ Wilcox come off the bench and see garbage time. So I probably lean more towards not rostering Redick in cash.
Yeah, I'm on I'd rather go Crawford in cash. On FanDuel, Redick's 4,900, Crawford's 5K. I like Crawford more because I'm worried about the minutes downside with Redick, and Crawford kind of has a decent floor outside of his disaster of a game. But
I gotta mention Crawford though, because I was watching that game. I had a little Wes Johnson who was on a second unit, and Jamal Crawford I think had like an 85% usage rate that game against the Kings. Like literally every time he touched the ball, he was like, I'm gonna shoot it and I'm gonna freeze everybody else out. I'm gonna shoot it. And like when he didn't get the ball, and I think it was who was running point, like Wilcox or something, or Prigioni or something. He would like actively make a beeline towards the ball. Give me the ball. I'm gonna shoot it. I want to shoot it.
If you were paying attention to the play-by-play that night, like we were out eating, and the only game on was Memphis Lakers, so we were paying attention to the box score, and every line was Jamal Crawford shot. Jamal Crawford shot. Like his usage rate, as you said, was just absolutely insane. Although I do want to say, I like the usage. I do like how he plays blowout minutes, so that's not a concern. It's probably a great tournament play, maybe even cash for the price, whatever. But since Jeff Green has debuted with the Clippers, he is averaging 3 fewer minutes per game than Jeff Green. Jeff Green is playing more minutes than Jamal Crawford in actual, when the game is in contention. So that does certainly worry me.
Yeah, for sure. I think Crawford's fine if you absolutely need to save at shooting guard and you want a piece of either Redick or Crawford. I think he's fine, and this is more on FanDuel where they're both really cheap. I'm fine with. But yeah.
I probably lean tournaments too because I talked about this with Jay Sean, is that with Jamal, I'm worried about Jeff Green. And Jeff Green was promoted to the starting 5 last game just because Paul Pierce was out with a personal issue, I believe. And Paul Pierce is expected to be back in the lineup for this one. So Jeff Green goes back to that second unit, and it'll be Green and Crawford kind of competing for shots, kind of both making beelines to the ball, seeing who can get it faster. So for that reason, I don't think Crawford's going to have as high usage as we saw in the Sacramento game. So.
That's the best documentary is Jamal Crawford and Jeff Green second half.
It's a sleeper.
Yeah, it's not a bad nomination. But yeah, definitely. And then touching up kind of on shooting guard overall on FanDuel, you got to start 2. We definitely like targeting Harden. And we got Will the Thrill Bart in there as well. So, there's not as much as a need to kind of save there. You also got Middleton as well. So it's pretty strong, stronger than usual to where, you don't really want to risk Redick with his minutes downside and Crawford with his usage split with Jeff Green. So overall, yeah, let's transition into the quick hits here. For DraftKings, we'll go position by position and kind of break down where we stand on each player, whether it's cash or tournament or just no exposure at all. So we'll start with point guard. You wanna hit point guard, Justin, or which position do you want to go?
Yeah, I'll grab the point and dish it off afterwards. We'll go DK just because they're the default. And Russ, I think, one of the top cash game plays of the slate. We said we prefer him to KD just because of the composition of the positions and how much we like Giannis there at small forward. CP3, definitely a great tournament play. And cash, a little afraid of the spread there and the blowout potential. John Wall, kind of the similar with CP3. Kind of look at him in cash at DK, but you probably want to spend up for Russ on Monday. Rondo, a good tournament play, assuming he does give it a go. He's currently questionable. Kyrie, slight tournament exposure is fine. Conley, we love in tournaments, will be very under-owned given just the bevy of options at point guard on Monday. Great matchup against the Nuggets and a tighter spread than it would be against the Lakers. Off Isaiah Thomas, off Ish Smith, don't want any exposure to the Sixers. Like Derek Collison a lot. You could cash him for sure if Rondo ends up being ruled out again. Yeah, I'd stay far away from Shelvin Mack.
As far as you can.
Like Patrick Beverly, a really good way to get exposure to that Rockets-Bucks total. Should see 30 minutes and a good candidate for a couple steals as well. Let's see here. John likes a little DJ Augustine in his life.
Oh, yeah. All my life.
Jay's not going to say anything because he might get just crushed any minute now.
I can't say much, yeah. Is point guard done, man? This is like half the pod.
Yeah, I think point guard's done.
I think you just listed every point guard in tomorrow's slate.
Oh, it's really deep position. I looked through shooting guard. Yeah.
So it'll be it'll be half the time because there's no one at shooting guard.
I know. I'll go to shooting guard real quick.
All right.
James Harden, strong cash play. Chris Middleton, I think, strong cash play as well. Bradley Beal, I don't want much exposure. He's on a back-to-back, so he is limited in upside in terms of minutes. After that, I think Jamal Crawford more so on FanDuel is a kind of a decent tournament play there. Will Barton, strong cash play on both sides. It's interesting if you go Harden on DraftKings. I don't mind at all going Barton in your guard spot, even with how deep point guard was, but definitely a strong cash play there. I think Redick, Reddick you can kind of honestly ignore in both formats because he's not safe enough really in this one for cash. And then I don't really like the upside too much at his price. Gary Harris, I don't mind in cash, but I have much stronger options at shooting guard, even price relative here to really go him. I think he's more of a FanDuel play where you have to start two. After that, we don't like Bogdanovich much at all. I think that's it. Bellinelli is very points dependent, so if Gay is out, it's kind of hard to gauge his upside really, and not the strongest cash play, but definitely offers, you save a bunch of salary there. And that's it. Yeah, shooting guard is really bad, but it has depth in terms of realistic options in cash.
Small forward, quite a bit, and it's going to depend on your lineup construction because we have Durant and Giannis as the top options in cash. Now, you do have, of course, the forward flex eligibility, so you could do that. Otherwise, you're looking at either paying up for Durant or saving less and going with Giannis, both amazing options. LeBron, good in cash, although I don't think tomorrow requires you to do it. If anything, spend up another $900 for KD. Paul George, probably off entirely, even in tournaments. Just what kind of upside does he hold against LeBron in that matchup? Rudy Gay, great matchup, only 6,600. The pivot would be Omri Caspi since Rudy Gay is questionable. He's an obvious play at 4,600 if Rudy Gay is out. Jay Crowder, who's just been killing it as of late, good in tournaments, potentially good in cash. Trevor Ariza, great tournament option. Matt Barnes, everyone's trying to rewind every night. Just fine, depending how the Memphis situation shakes out with Tony Allen. Robert Covington, if Hollis Thompson is out again, also a good option. As Jay just opens the candy just right now on the podcast.
I spent $41 on candy tonight because I was tilted with my cash lineup.
This is a home that does not have a coffee maker. And for all the vices we have, when there is no candy and coffee in the mix that we can't find, we just went nuts at Walgreens. Just all the coffee, all the candy you can give me. Oh, and Lance Stevens is too costly at DraftKings, $4,000. Don't want any of it, even if Tony Allen's
out. All right.
Yeah, we're good with everything else. Okay. All right. Let's go to power forward here. All right, Boogie Cousins. We talked about him. You probably don't want to need to spend up for him in this slate, even though it's a pretty decent spot with a high total against OKC. Favors, good tournament play. Zach Randolph, like him a lot in this spot against probably a little undersized Denver front court that might go a little small. Off that, because of blowout potential, some tournaments fine. Like Jabari a lot. One of the better cash game options at power forward. Serge Ibaka, some slight tournament exposure is fine, but don't go too crazy there. Miles Turner, could look at him, but not a great spot at all against Cleveland. Let's see. Markieff Morris, interested in him if he starts the game. Juicy spot against Philly. And what else here? JaMychal Green, if Brandon Wright's out, I like him as a punt play option. He's going to see a lot of minutes. Don't see Chris Anderson seeing a ton of time in this one. John likes a little Amir Johnson in his life as well. I don't mind that too much, though it is a tough spot against Favors and Gobert. And that's about it. How do we feel about Brandon Wright if he does play?
Oof. I mean, yeah, I guess we just weren't really expecting him to play. I think if he does play, I mean, it's tough to say because the knee injury looked bad, so I'd kind of be worried that he'd re-aggravate it, I guess, a little bit. So I
would probably project only like 18 minutes anyways. Like, I don't know.
It's also tough with, the small ball factor. So, yeah.
I'd be off of him.
Yeah, if he is healthy, I'm willing to definitely go him maybe in another game or see him on his knee where he's good. Then I'd feel comfortable. But, yeah, I'm probably off him if he does play as well. But power forward is definitely pretty deep and has a lot of options for both formats. Let's get into center. Starting at the top, DeAndre Jordan, I think, is a pretty strong tournament play, really. I think he'll be overlooked here. against a bad Brooklyn team. And if he does play big minutes, I think he can definitely rack up a strong line. I think Brook Lopez is an interesting tournament play you can have some exposure to. Dwight's probably our favorite cash play, especially on DK at just 7,300. I think he's a strong cash play on FanDuel at 8K as well. Greg Monroe is a great tournament play in that matchup in that game at just 7,100. Gortat, I think, is a strong cash play. I think he's stronger on FanDuel where there's a bit of more of a difference between him and Dwight. If you need that extra $1,100 on DK, I'd rather just kind of pay up for Dwight there. Gobert, definitely like attacking the Boston front court in tournament formats, so I like him in that regard. Okafor, it's tough because of minutes concerned, but I think you can have a little bit of a tournament exposure with him. Solinger, kind of the same thing, some tournament exposure, but a brutal matchup for him, so I'd be very limited in that. Jokic, kind of the king tournament play on most nights where he could go 11 minutes, he could go 4 minutes, or he could go for 40 points. So definitely some exposure to him if you're running multiple lineups. Cantor we like as a tournament option, especially if that game gets out of hand. After that,
and Adams gets in foul trouble.
Yeah, definitely. If Adams gets in foul trouble. If Adams doesn't get in foul trouble, I mean, I question kind of his upside really in this. So very limited exposure, if any at all. After that, I think it drops off pretty hard and don't see any options. You can't roll Birdman out there even with the 20 minutes last game. So yeah, overall, good slate. I think it's a lot of strong cash plays and options you can spend at point guard. You can spend at small forward. You can save pretty much every position. There's a cheap guy available and an expensive stud available to go. So I think it kind of sets up for an easier cash game slate than usual with a lot of options, but also a great tournament slate where you can pivot from some of these guys. Like Chris Paul, I think is a great tournament play. Lots of guys like that. So overall, a strong slate, and good luck everyone on this slate. You got any closing thoughts, Justin or John?
I hope Jay grows to my size by next podcast.
It's impossible. Nobody can be that big.
Yeah, that about does it. I like the Oscar twist that we threw in there. I thought that was good, and shout out to Glory Govin.
Yeah, definitely. And shout out to the Warriors. The Warriors they cleaned up the Oscars.
It was a good year for the Warriors.
Yeah, they won a lot of awards there, so good for them. They won a lot of our awards, and good luck, everyone. We'll be back. I will be back with Brian on Tuesday night to break down the Wednesday pod, and we'll see you then. I'm about to eat $41 worth of candy, so good luck, everyone.